Hey there. Breaking news. I just went through 15 damn channels and set up the itinerary for today, everything that we're going to talk about. Now, yeah, forget about it. Because as I was about to go, I was actually sorry for those of you at 99.1 who may have been a little confused for a second or two because I was in the middle of bringing two large dogs in from outside and setting up, getting ready for both 99.1 WDJY and everybody else. When my phone went off and this message came across in a text message from one of the campaigns I'm following, one here in Florida. Senator Rick Scott is running for re-election. And in my opinion, dude can't run far enough away. But running for re-election, this just in, after an Emerson poll had Debbie Powell, a former House representative, this is the Democrat running against him, had Debbie just 1 point down against Rick Scott, which is not far. It's going to likely be within the margin of error, which means she might not even be down. 1 point down against Rick Scott. Experts at Real Clear Polling upgraded Florida's race from leans GOP, which means it's close. There's leans, likely, and solid. When your state on the map is given a color, either red or blue, if it's light red, it leans towards the Republicans, towards GOP. If it's a medium red, it's likely GOP. I mean, hell might freeze over and it could change, but it's likely going to be how it is. And then there's solid, like, don't even bother following it. You know, like California for Harris, Iowa, Indiana for Trump, stuff like that. Alaska for Trump, etc. It is now a toss-up in the senatorial race in Florida for Rick Scott and Debbie Powell. Rick Scott, a bit on the psychotic side, also a Trumper. So again, I'm not really supporting any one candidate anywhere, unless, of course, they're running against a Trumper. So you guys remember I was sick a couple weeks ago. Tried to come on the air as much as possible anyway. I did, actually. But I still get like this cough in the back of my throat. My throat gets dry. And all of a sudden, I'm hacking. That's why I had to mute my mic a second. I'm going to cough in your ears. So there's that. So this just in, Florida toss-up in the senatorial race. Trump and Harris polls, we'll talk about them today. We got some news. Hang out to the end for the usual morning motivation. We didn't get to that at all yesterday. And first up is Pierre's Pot. We're actually going to finish yesterday's. I never really got to fully talk about it. But over the weekend, I met this lady, Nuala. She's Scottish, lovely lady. We'll talk about her right now almost, but don't forget the phone lines, 1-888-88 Yergs. Join us, get in on the conversation. You can also call 1-844-GAY-LGBT. That's right. We've had that number. It's tied in. We're opening that up now too. It'll go to Rainbow Radio when that gets launched and is independent from Yerg's Radio. Right now, some of the live shows get aired there as well, just as a test. And other than that, it's not a launch station yet. Pierre's Pot, in honor of Pierre Robert, 93.3 WMMR, Philadelphia, a radio DJ hero of mine who has been there since 1981. We toast the morning sauce, that of course is coffee, in the direction of one of our good citizens, as Pierre would call them, aka today's honored listener. Again, that is Nuala. That's all I got. I don't know what her last name is. I've talked to some other people about her already as well. She is, according to Mars, who told me about her yesterday, Nuala is a princess. She is this lovely old lady from Scotland. Still is in Scotland. Who does she look like? Think Stevie Nicks. She kind of a little bit of resemblance, a little straighter hair, not as bushy or curly as Stevie's, but just think of, but she's very trendy. She's very rock star. So think Stevie Nicks meets Mrs. Doubtfire. Her mannerisms, her voice, for those of us tone deaf Yankees who can't hear squat because everybody else is the only one with an accent. She sounds to me and to so many others that were in the chat rooms that we were talking with her in exactly like Robin Williams' portrayal of Mrs. Doubtfire. And she hates that, but she gets it. That so many other Americans, regardless of the part of the country we're from, are equally as tone deaf as I am. So she ran with it with us. It was a good spirit, good sport. And for that reason, and her willingness to hear what we're all trying to do in the creator space and give pretty sweet feedback, and also take our ideas of what she could do with that. This is to Nuala today. The toast of the morning sauce, madam, is in your direction. Well done, and we certainly all look forward to talking with you again on Chatter, Rumble, or no, Chatter, Clubhouse is the other one, and wherever else, and you're welcome here anytime. Okay. So again, this just in, I'm going to have to quickly manually look this up because I don't know that it's really other than whatever they're getting. And maybe Real Clear has it. Let's just say Rick Scott Pollz. There we go. That's what came up. And there's 538. Real Clear. That's what was in the text. All right. Let's share a screen here. For those of you listening on Yerg's Radio and 99.1 and any other audio only type of platform, hang tight. I will be very verbal for you. Because I don't know if this is, I mean, it's got to be because they just reported it. This one, Real Clear, is showing a bit wider. A bit wider of a spread than what I would have anticipated for this to be a toss-up. It's Debbie McCarsall. Nobody I've talked to knows how to pronounce that. I mean, not even Matt from our Friday show. What does my dog have? Not even Matt from our Friday show, who's also a Democrat, it knows how to But I guess the biggest thing that's pulling this down is the recent poll from The Hill. Those are all old, though. Because the periods these are covering, look at this date column here, gang. CBS News, this is covered from back in May. The most recent one here is from The Hill, covering from 9/3 to 9/5. That's 2 weeks ago. Let me read this again. She's pulling in $150,000 a day in funding. So that, and dude's self-funding his own, at least so he said. Back in 2018, when he was elected, it was close then against Nelson. In 2022, when Rubio was reelected, it wasn't close. Rubio won that with 57.7% of the vote over, I think it's Val Demings, 41.3. But this is what I've been talking about. You've got to keep chipping away. I mean, look at Texas. Allred's leading. That happened over the weekend or late last week. But he's ahead. He's beating Ted Cruz. How awesome is that? One of the most stuck-up, pretentious asses in all of governing. Shady. My 8-year-old, very large Mastiff is trying to chill on the bed beside of me. Shady, the 8-month-old or 8-week-old puppy, is having none of it. She's actually been 12 weeks, but so that's real clear. And based on the text message I just got, it's not real clear. So we're going to go back and see what other polls are a little bit more. Here is 538. Florida. This one's even farther. But this is polls ending. This is polls ending August 26th. And like, do these people know that there's another month going through? I mean, I don't get it. And it just goes back at it's not like that's the oldest one, and it goes. And of course, the most recent poll here was done by the Florida Chamber of Commerce, which has the red star aside of it, meaning as a partisan sponsor for the Republican Party. Of course, they're going to tell you that Scott's 7 points ahead. This is all this does. All of this does is illustrate my point. Don't waste so much damn time on these stupid polls. Of course, we're going to go to Harris versus Trump next. But here's what I'm looking at. Look at these polls. Let that be your start. And then what do I tell you to do all the time? Everything you do. Fact check. Do your homework. just by looking at somebody else's homework doesn't mean yours is finished. So what do you do next? Take some of the elements I've been looking at and have been following that are vastly different from 2020 and 2022. One, social media. To look at this, you have to have followed the same candidates or parties or issues back in 2020 or 2022. Why? Because you're going to the profiles and the posts themselves. Maybe not by the candidate or the campaign, but about the candidate and the campaign. And look at what was said then and how it was reacted to. For example, compared to 2016, compared to 2020, to now, anything that has a pro-Trump post by either a pro-Trump supporter, the campaign, Trump himself, has much more potential and likelihood of a initially Biden, now Harris supporter getting on and trolling that account and individual comments. And now, compared to previous, I'm seeing that happen en masse. I do not see it happen as much by MAGA people on what would now be the Harris campaign, Harris movement. Again, her personal Twitter account, as an example, the campaign's Twitter account, other supporting movements like a political action committee or, and we'll get to another one, the Republican-led pro-Harris accounts or individual people supporting Harris. And that leads us to number two with regards to inside of social media. I've never seen a movement like this where one party in individual factions and essentially large enough such that it's together as a party moves so far forward in support of the opponent. You've never seen this before. Certainly not in 2016. And probably then, as unfortunate and unfounded as it would have been, probably then more so Democrats against Hillary. Because like I've said before, I love what she's done for our country for her entire life in public service, but she did not manage her reputation well. And that could have been done better, should have been done better. But now, I didn't really see either in either direction in 2020 by comparison to what we're seeing today. 44 cabinet members from the Trump administration for 15 positions. That's basically 3 per position, which it's not. Some of them actually made it the whole way through. He's had multiple chiefs of staff. He's had some other multiple positions that are generally considered to be a part of the cabinet, although they don't have a vote for things such as the 25th Amendment. That's just the vice president and actual secretaries. But of the 44 people who have been in a cabinet, in the Trump cabinet from 2016 to 2020, 40 of them have refused to endorse Trump this time around. 1 in 10 of his cabinet members has endorsed him this time around. Then there's the number of people who, like those 40, have not only not endorsed him, but not endorsed him. That is to say, they said, look, don't vote for this guy. And have flat out turned around. Now, some of them can't because they shouldn't be not endorsing him in the first place. That's the Joint Chiefs. But Dick Cheney, who's not at all left-leaning, has completely, as well as his daughter Liz Cheney, who we all know, co-chair of the January 6th committee, lost her position in Congress for not supporting Donald Trump. Adam Kinzinger, little bit lefter-leaning, but still a conservative Republican, and considering where he was from, rightfully so. And now it's up to almost 300 prominent Republicans, most of these from the federal level, but also state and local level, who have not only not yet, and as of now, won't be, endorsing Donald Trump, but have actually turned and endorsed Kamala Harris. That's unheard of. That's laughable to a point where if you were to say that's going to happen, if I would have said, you watch, actually I did. I did say that would happen. Not on the, to be clear, not at these numbers. But I said, you can't tell me that people who, especially Kinzinger and Liz Cheney, who have lost their jobs, Mitt Romney, another one. Mitt Romney retired. Yeah, right. He saw the writing on the wall and said, you know what? I just can't. And that's what other people who have lost their spots in Congress or in the Senate or elsewhere, they're just, I'm done. And that's another issue or another category. What are the people saying? When you have people who were Trump supporters making commercials as to why they're not Trump supporters, and TikTok videos, and Facebook posts, and tweets. Yeah, that's happened before. Individual voters speak out and get their 15 minutes of fame. But we're going to take a break in a second. And one of the ads I'm going to play for you is called Never Trump. It shows you, this is a video, so for those on a video platform, also welcome. It shows you the people as, and it's like the Hollywood squares times 50. The number of people in these little blocks joining to record their piece virtually. Talk about the various issues. 3 or 4, whatever the number is, separate indictments, 94 counts, 34 convicted so far, which is all of them that have been tried so far, by the way. The fact that he's been not only impeached twice, we all know that's political. Regardless of how deserving it is, Bill Clinton was impeached. We now know, and he's admitted that it was rightfully so. He was impeached because the House was led by Republicans. Forget about whether or not it should have happened, it happened mostly because it was Republican led. He was found not guilty in the Senate because the Senate was Democrat led. Same thing with Trump. He was impeached twice, rightfully so. I think that should have been looked at, and that's all an impeachment is the temporary removal of office so you can be tried in the Senate. But Trump had the Senate. And I think what's happening now with all the efforts to try to impeach Biden that fell through, and again, rightfully so, is that they're using the impeachment process as a vote of no confidence that the British Prime Minister is subjectable to. Once a president gets elected, that's it. They got to become an actual criminal to get yanked out. They can suck, but that doesn't make them capable of being removed. And that's why this going so political is the direction that's leaning. Anyway, the number of people that you're going to see who are speaking out against Trump and other people who have started channels solely for that purpose, this is all unheard of. Lastly, before the break, another thing I'm looking at, and there's other things, but this is stuff that sticks out. This is stuff that's literally in your face. Yard signs, advertisements. When I started moving to Tampa, I started visiting the area from LA I think my first trip was right after Election Day, somewhere around the holidays, Thanksgiving or Christmas, or in between the two, something like that, because I know it was still 2020. That's when I met one of the sexy ass dudes from the WWE. Really cool guy too. The one, speaking of Mrs. Doubtfire, the one Scottish guy. I keep wanting to think Wade Barrett, but he looks like Wade Barrett, but it's not Wade Barrett. Anyway, met him on that flight. It was a red eye. I think the only one I had nonstop from LA to Tampa. And one of the things I saw then, again, this being immediately after the 2020 election, in rural Tampa, there were signs for Trump all over the place. I got to fix this mic here, so if you just hear some dinging around, that's me, sorry. There were Trump signs all over the place. And I don't mean just your basic yard sign. That's not what I'm talking about. I don't mean the 18 by 24. Oh, I think I'm turning this the wrong way. Son of a bitch. I don't mean the 18, but there's these little screws that hold the shock mount in place. And I'm kind of dizzy. So if I start turning it the wrong way, the whole mic's going to fall apart. So I'm not talking about the 18 by 24 signs that are in people's front yards, which, by the way, you buy. I don't think a lot of people know that. You don't just write the campaign and say, hey, I want to be a supporter and put a sign in my yard. Not at that level. You buy the thing. You've donated money to the campaign, and then they send it to you. They ship it to you. It's still, 18 by 2 feet wide, 18 inches by 24 inches, and it's got that metal bracket. It's not like they just roll it up in an envelope and off it goes. So they ship that to you. And then you put it in your yard and support your guy or gal. In 2020, they were all over the place. They were cluttered on the countryside of Tampa for Trump. But the signs that I'm actually talking about are the 8 by 12 signs. Yeah, I'm not talking 8 by 12 inches. I'm talking about 8 by 12 feet. that are essentially 3 4x8 sheets of plywood connected together to make a nice landscape portrait, landscape board. It's a small billboard, is what these people have created for Trump. I don't know. Maybe you've donated to make that too, and it also gets sent to you. But I'm looking at things that are on the side of people's houses. I'm looking at things that are in their business parking lots. I'm looking at farmers that have them in their fields on the side of a roadway. These signs also were all over the place. And even in my small area, town, of, like I said, I don't tell people where I live because, not everybody's a fan, to be clear. But rural Tampa, where the surrounding area is predominantly Republican, I don't see any of them today and all summer. Even at this point in 2021, there were still signs like this all over the place, almost a year after the 2020 election. 8 months or more into Biden's presidency, still Trump signs all over the place. We're coming up on what could be his biggest election. And I don't see anything. There's literally nothing that size anywhere around. Now go back to the 18 by 24 or whatever the size they are, but you're getting what I'm saying. The 18 by 24 inch yard signs. I see some of them. They're smaller in size this time around, which says something about the campaign and the amount of money they've got to create them in the first place. But I'm also seeing, remember we said you buy those, you donate to the campaign, and then they're shipped to you? I've got a neighbor who cut his Trump Pence sign in half, ditched the Pence portion, even though it's only 2 letters off from Vance, the P and the E, changed it to a V and an A, and you got Vance. He cut the sign in half, or in 2, ditched the Pence portion, and just rehung Trump. What's that tell you? He's not spending the money to get a new sign. I don't think this is even going to be close. I've been saying that. These and some other indicators we'll talk about later because I got to take a break. But these and other indicators we talked about earlier, and I'll talk about again later, are telling me it's just not going to happen for him. And I couldn't be happier. I mean, when North Carolina, even if he wins some or all of them, when North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, and Texas and Arizona, even if he lost, he lost Arizona and Georgia in 2020, looking like he could possibly get both of them, flip both of them this time around. Florida leans GOP. Florida. And we talked earlier about, I got to look at the thing here again, McCarcel, Powell, and Scott being as close as what the McCarcel-Powell text message said it is, although I'm not finding the actual polls suggesting it's that close, that it's worthy of being a toss-up. It's closer than all of those other elections that we looked at. Rubio's re-election in 22, Scott's election in 18. Scott might not make it. And Texas flipped. As far as the polls are going right now, obviously there's been no election yet, but I'm going to sneeze too, damn it, so I got to take this break. But the Senate race with Ted Cruz and Colin Allred's leading. Didn't make it. Allred's leading. This is all unheard of. And none of it is good for Trump. 99.1 WDJY, the UG.media, serving London and the rest of the UK. There's the other one, America One. I'm missing one. AmericaOneRadio.com, also serving Atlanta. The Tan Talk Network joins us again on Friday, as does WWPR. Rainbow Radio and Yerg's Radio is always here with us, of course. The Mastiff.media network. It's Yerg's, and we'll be back after this. I got to find that commercial I promised you. Hang tight. Let's change it. This is the one. Here it comes.
Talking about retribution
and going after people is disrespect of our military.
The military people that he's disgraced.
91
criminal felonies,
4 different indictments.
He mishandled classified documents.
Taking documents.
Now his desire to do away with NATO.
Donald Trump talks about abandoning Ukraine.
He said he'll be a dictator on day one.
If he's going to be a dictator on day one, he's going to be a dictator, period.
That kind of stuff scares me.
Absolutely scares me.
The second Trump term would be worse than the first.
A second term for Trump would be far more extreme.
It is dangerous, outright dangerous.
I cannot support Donald Trump again.
I'd never vote for him again.
You'll never get my vote, ever, ever.
Smell nasty. Do you want to freshen it up a little bit? Go to aromabypeter.com. Check out all of Peter's candles. It's what we burn here in Studio Yerg's. I'm burning right now leather scented candle. That's right, leather scented. So go to aromabypeter.com/Yerg's and check out his candles today.
I'm Jane Stahl, retired English teacher, and with my BFF, Susan Bebeck, we manage Studio B Fine Art Gallery in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. We showcase the art of hundreds of local artists, publish books of the poetry, prose, and art of local writers, offer classes, art parties, workshops, discussion groups, cater dinners. We've even hosted a wedding. And we're here to be the go-to place for friendship, learning, and fun in our community. Virtual tours of our exhibits are available right here on Yerg's Radio. Let us introduce you to some amazing art and artists.
Check out Jane Stahl and everyone at Studio B in Boyertown, Pennsylvania. Please visit our YouTube channel, Talk TV 24. How's your website doing? I'll tell you how mine's doing. It's awesome. Yergs.com is gotta be the best website for anybody in podcasting or any sort of broadcast solo journalist like me. How did I get that? Limit Break Digital. Limit Break Digital did my website with Yergs.com. They did YergerGroup.com. They take care of my marketing, my branding, and help me get the message out to you. Go to limitbreakdigital.com/Yergs for 10% off your next project. That's a $3,000 site, Yergs.com. And you can get 10% off that by just going to limitbreakdigital.com/Yergs today. Talk to Jay. That's my guy. We all got a guy, and Jay's mine. limitbreakdigital.com. Hey gang, it's Yergs. Right now, our country is about to embark on yet another controversial presidential election. I have an actual question, legitimate question, as a political scientist and historian by education. If you are a Trump supporter, I want to hear from you. I want to know what your appeal to Donald Trump is at this time. Please email me Newz, N-E-W-Z, at yergs.com. Newz, N-E-W-Z, at yergz.com. Thanks. Participants must... I'm moving around videos. That's why that one got cut short quickly. If you send me any info to talk about why you support Trump, you need to be willing to have your first name and the town in which you live or city in which you live or wherever it is that you live announced when I discuss our conversation. That's it. That's what that part you missed. And I clicked accidentally on the commercial for the whistleblowers because I'm trying to click and drag it to another spot in this file for videos. That way I can keep all the political stuff together. And in another month from now, a little over a month from now, 6 weeks from now, actually from today, wow, there's that. I can get rid of them all rather easily. All right, so we've got a lot to cover really quick. In Trump news, that'll be it, according to Trump. Hopefully, when he loses this one, and if I don't know if we've got some new platforms on social media. We've got some new radio stations. Hopefully, on those that we got already, we also have some new listeners. The reason I can't support Trump is the same reason I'm also against Ron DeSantis. And the other one I would have labeled into this was Vivek Ramaswamy. And remember, I'm saying this with a political science background. All right? They're fascists. Even in the debate, Trump talked about, I forget the guy's name, but the guy from Hungary. Another one he talks about is the president of Turkey. I just saw an expose last night about the case that got dropped when he came to office. Do you remember that last minute $10 million self-investment / loan that he gave to his campaign? That was paid by Egypt. That's not legal. And not only is it not legal, it's also not legal to have your own attorney general after you've won, after you came to power. I'm not going to call 2016 a win. Because again, I love how people keep saying, oh, the Russia thing was a hoax. No, it wasn't. Republicans are now in Congress saying, yeah, there was influence by Russians and others in 2016. How pissed is Hillary that people are only growing the balls to say it now? But anyway, everything that Trump's got going on, the way he looks up to dictators, not people like Angela Merkel, Justin Trudeau, French people that risk their job, as I forget his name, but the most recent guy did, and call for elections to say, hey, Do I still got what it takes? Let's find out. And lose. Those aren't dictators. Those are people who put things in the hands of the people where it belongs. So Trump says, and again, hopefully I say, when he loses this year, he will not be back in 2028. There's also the hee-haw and back around and all over about whether or not we're going to see another debate with Kamala Harris. He says no. He says it's too late. He says that the election's already started with reference to mail-in ballots, which means those people have already cast their vote. He can't change their minds. This is the excuses this guy comes up with. Now, if I were Kamala Harris, I would take a page out of the Trump book. Remember the Republican primaries where Trump didn't show up at all and still won? Maybe it's worth a shot. And why does he say that? Maybe something along the lines of, I mopped the floor with his ass once. I don't need to do it again. In fact, you know what? You've all been bitching. You've all being the media, been bitching about me not doing any interviews. In exchange for not wasting my time talking to an asshat like Donald Trump, I'm going to give you folks an interview. All of you. Let's sit down. Hillary did this. During the one phase of her campaign in 2008, we were, popping in and out and leaving as we were hitting the 5 cities a day. We get on the plane after being at the Capitol for part of the morning. By an actual breakfast time, she was at a few votes and off she goes to campaign. 5 cities a day later, we're coming back after midnight, only to come back at 5:30 the next morning and start all over again. That slowed to 3 and 4 cities a day when she began doing press avails at each of these events. Sometimes it was a group press event. Other times it was a local or a regional, like somebody from a network that covers that particular corner of the country. And it would be a sit down. That's what Kamala needs to do. And I know I got to stop drinking coffee and start drinking water, but that's why they call it an addiction. That's what Kamala needs to do. She starts doing press avails of any sort instead of wasting her time on a debate. Not only is she going to check that box, meaning everybody's that was bitching about her not doing press avails has to stop bitching about her not doing press avails, but also they will have that opportunity to have talked to her. And not that they're treating her badly, but when she wins, it will be a much better start into her administration. All right? Tell me how that's not time better spent than dicking around with Donald Trump. It's not. I think that's a better way to go. There's no reason for her. Nothing good can happen from it. What? She kicks his ass again? Yawn. She doesn't kick his ass. That might not be good. And he's saying he doesn't want to anyway. This is the time right now where she makes that change. And she starts scheduling press avails over the next 6 weeks. When am I supposed to debate this guy? He hauled around and I made use of my time from now up to and beyond Election Day. You want me to cut them all out just to talk to this goof? No. Sorry, Donald. maybe if you had the capability of making a decision and moving forward with it, like a president needs to be able to do, we'd be debating again. I don't know. What do you think? Speaking of what do you think, I got to figure out what's next. Sorry. The other thing that came back over... Okay, so I don't believe it. The Washington Post, they're now saying that Trump's back in Pennsylvania. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on. I'm reading that wrong. The headline from the Post article, Trump back in Pennsylvania, where polls show a tight race. Okay, he just campaigned again in Pennsylvania. He was in Bethlehem. So that makes more sense now. Because she was leading there too. And we can do that. This is, everything that I don't have anything pulled up right now because of that breaking story that we did at the beginning of the show. Let's go to this. There we go. All right. So this is how you get this every time from 270 to win. 270 TOWIN. 270 to win is referring to the 270 electoral college votes a candidate needs to win the presidency. Scroll up here and show you the different things. We've used this before, but if we were to check on this one, it would be the 2020 electoral votes. So we would be going back to the 2020 election. This one is going to show you the change from 2020 to how it looks right now. And then the one that we're on is how it looks right now with, again, those three different degrees. Leans is a light color of blue or red, almost like a pink. Likely is a medium blue or red. And safe is a dark blue or red. And then tan is a toss-up. I'm not going to waste time showing the third party. Kennedy's out. He was never viable in the first place either. And yeah, I just think sticking with this is where we should be. Florida, from 1 to 2 or 3 points is where I would say leans in that direction. 4 points to 5 or 6, likely. 7 or more, it's pretty safe. My best estimations. But here, this has changed. Texas. So I'm going to, I think there's actually 4 of these. Yeah. So here's the Senate. 2024 Senate interactive map. Gray has nobody for election right now. And then and then blue or red or purple. Purple is independent. There are no toss-ups in the senatorial map. This is the one down here in Florida. They're saying that they had it. Okay. Well, actually, it was only leaning red toward Rick Scott. Now they're saying that's a toss-up. This has changed. He's now leaning for Colin Allred. me see something. Yeah. So by Florida becoming a toss-up, and we leave it there for right now, it takes that member out of the Senate, and it shows that our Democrats are leading 51 to Republican 48. I can't get my voice clear. But even if Rick Scott wins in Florida, right now Colin Allred is not looking good. So we're about to wrap up on 99.1. Join us at Yergz, YERGZ, YergzRadio.com to continue this. We're about to lose you at 99.1. We'll see you again tomorrow at 11. We're also about to lose America One Radio. Again, YergzRadio.com. You can find any of the venues we're on. Mastiff.media is all of our locations. You can find us there and go to the location of your choice. We'll see you again tomorrow at 11. There goes the one. Probably going to lose the other. See you again tomorrow at 11. Let's continue this, and then we'll wrap up. There's just one thing I got to do on this. All right. So, on the Senate, even if Florida does go to Rick Scott, right now, Colin Allred's leading. If that stays, and the purples are independents, there we go. The purples are independents. There's two of them, one in Maine, one in Vermont. And they lean Democrat. And they do what's called caucus with Democrats. So they're kind of counted as Democrats, even though technically they're not. Texas to Allred. Maybe. And it's not a definite because it's still only leaning. And there's 6 weeks to go. But here's the thing. When you get into these different directional movements, it takes a lot to change that direction. Colin Allred has been working for the past year and longer, really, for behind-the-scenes stuff. He's been working for at least the past year on defeating Ted Cruz. Now it looks like he's there. You think Ted Cruz is just going to up and turn that around? But because it's only leaning, and I'm saying leaning because he just took the lead in a poll, ultimately, it's really still a toss-up. Florida, according to that notification I got today, is a toss-up. Bob Casey, I think, is still going to win Pennsylvania. Moreno is going to lose in Ohio. So those will both be re-elections as Democrats. Michigan and Wisconsin, I'm hearing the same thing. Even in Montana, that's the one they're really concerned about losing. But even with losing Texas and Florida, should that happen, the only thing that's really got potential to change it is should Montana flip. And then that would make it 51 to 49. And it wouldn't matter if the Democrats, if Kamala Harris wins the White House and Tim Walz becomes the deciding vote the way Kamala Harris has done 16 times in the past 3.5 years. So there's some work to be cut out for us, and it's possible. It's reachable. But I thought Montana was supposed to start blue. Oh well. Yeah, I'm not I'm not convinced that they'll flip both Florida and Texas. It's just not realistic. But I also think that Montana, the one seat in Montana is savable. So we'll see what happens. On to the president, and then we'll wrap up. Harris is leading in Wisconsin, Michigan, and she's actually increased further in Pennsylvania. That's it. She wins those three based on current other polls. She wins those three, it's over. It had been a little back and forth, but she actually started leaning North Carolina. And like I said, that's been back and forth. Georgia was leaning. It's capable, it's possible, but Georgia had been leaning this time around to Trump. We'll do another episode, probably on the podcast, maybe, about really how effed up, I am off terrestrial radio now, how fucked up Georgia really is. That Scott Roethlisberger, or Brad Roethlisberger, the guy who turned down Trump's request to find 11,000 votes. I'm now believing that is in part to the fact that he knew the phone call was recorded, because they're doing some other shady things to try to suppress Democrat votes, which are, again, in these black rural areas where it's difficult to, there's not as many polling stations, one, and two, that means they have to be in line. That means they're in line for a longer period of time. That means they have to get off work. That means they have to get there in the first place. You see where this is going. Which is why so many of demographics that are put into those situations do mail-in or Dropbox ballots, and why it looks like one guy, Julio, in some van, is bringing boxes to a Dropbox. Well, it's because he collected them for his community, being like the one guy with a vehicle that starts and can get these very important ballots to a polling station on behalf of his community. Nevada has been leaning towards Harris. I'm not, and I hate when other guys do this, so I'm not going to do it very long either, but everybody likes to get you scared. And I think that's good, because then you get your ass out to vote, which is also important. And I'm not going to stop telling you to do what you got to do so that you do vote. But right now, Arizona's leading to Trump. That's the other one that he might flip in addition to Georgia. You know, I don't see it happening. I don't see him winning. Because even if he gets the entire South and gets North Carolina, it's still 276 to 262. And what happens is, well, Pennsylvania's close. That send that to Trump, and now he's got 281. What does she have to do? Now she's got to win North Carolina, which is possible. We just talked about that. And they sit there and try to create so many different possibilities, so many different scenarios where they get this. And right now in Nebraska, they're trying to make that an all or nothing state, like 48 of the other 50s. Nebraska and Maine are the only two that have certain regions within the state where those group votes are separate from the rest of the electoral college of that state. And again, that's Nebraska. Did I change the wrong one? I think I did. Because Nebraska is mostly red. Yeah, let me see what that. Okay, there it is. That's the one. And then, for those on yours radio, Nebraska has 3 separate districts, and then the statewide. So Nebraska has 5 electoral, and then 3 separate. And then does Maine have 3 districts also? Yeah, so all but 2 states are winner take all, and it's Nebraska and Maine. And Maine's total is 4. Nebraska's total is 5. Earlier, New Hampshire was a toss-up. That's recently gone more towards Harris. And in fact, I think that they got that middle of the road now. Yeah. They've got that likely instead of leaning. Oop. So yeah, I see it. Wisconsin and Michigan, it's not going to be by a lot, but I see her getting them. Pennsylvania, same way. And the reason for that is those 3 are tight. I know Ohio has recently split off. And as you see on the map, for those with visual, it's Republican. In fact, I thought he was going to be the guy till I learned some things. One of the top 3 vice presidential candidates for Harris was Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania. After this election was made, I learned that there's allegations of Shapiro, having lost that based on his desire to be co-president with Kamala Harris. Well, I promise you, she looked at him like he had 3 heads. And that didn't go well. Arizona is the other one. And that's why I think that this one's still flippable. Pennsylvania was a toss-up. it's going, once she gets both of these guys campaigning for her, even though they're not going to be, her vice president, Kelly in Arizona was the other one, in addition to Shapiro in Pennsylvania. He is a Democratic senator from Arizona. And I think once he gets more active there, then he can help win Arizona and better secure Nevada, for that matter, which is also already leaning, possibly even becoming likely in her favor. That already puts her at 287 without the 32 remaining in Georgia or North Carolina. What I think is really going to help her in Georgia is when she went to a suburban part of another more liberal portion of the state, and that's Savannah, down in the southeast. You remember a couple of weeks ago, she and Walz were both there, and were both part of a buscapade, a bus tour throughout Georgia. And again, she's already leaning here in North Carolina. That sets her over 300. If that reciprocates to Georgia, she could be as much as 319 to 219. It's not a landslide because it's only a 50-point swing. But it's decisive. And I just think I think she's going to break 300. I'm not fully aware of where yet. I think she's going to break 300 for all of those reasons that I've mentioned earlier. Forget about the polls being a deciding factor. Look at what's happening. People are sick of the rhetoric. People are sick of the infighting. And her being the president of joy might sound a little kindergartnerish, but I think it's brilliant. I think it's a really smart move because people are so sick of, with the exception of that base, with the exception of, the true people who you didn't know existed prior to Trump, with the exception of that, were that willing to come out against Obama and express the hate that he had to live through. Other than that, there's no reason to still be supporting Trump. The three that I could come up with are pride, stupidity, and hate. You're too proud to admit the fact that you've been hoodwinked by a professional fraudster. He's not a better candidate. He's just not. If he was, almost 300 Republicans wouldn't be supporting Kamala Harris. At least 2 or 3 political action committees founded by Republicans for the sole purpose of supporting Kamala Harris. The Lincoln Project supports Kamala Harris. And what are they? Republicans for Harris. I think there's an all women one. The endorsements keep coming for Kamala Harris from Republicans. And it's a picture of Dick and Liz Cheney on that one. That's from the Boston Globe. Growing number, this is a big one. This is a big one. From The Hill, which is right-leaning, I think. Growing number of GOP national security leaders back Harris. Opinion from Bangor Daily News. It's in Bangor, Maine. Opinion. We chaired the Maine Republican Party. We endorsed Kamala Harris for president. These are all in the past 24 hours. Not to mention everything that's been there. Former Republicans officials to stump for Harris in Lancaster County. That's Pennsylvania. That's from Lancaster Online. And here we go with the New York Times again, trying to be right-leaning. These voters are anti-Trump, but will they be pro-Harris? What else are they going to do? Vote for Kennedy, who fought to get himself out of the race? Oh, this is good. CBS News did one last week of the Republicans who have endorsed Kamala Harris. Newsweek did what they call a full list of Republicans endorsing Kamala Harris. That was from a month ago. Republicans for Harris was the one group I was trying to think of. With more than 100,000 members. That's more than the 11,000 that he needed in Georgia. Split that up by 50 states. There's your increase. And another reason why I don't put a lot of weight in polls, yeah, use it as a starting point, but don't let it be all and end all. Another reason why I don't put a lot of weight in polls is because a lot of these people, like that guy that's my neighbor who cut his sign in half and has just Trump instead of what used to be Trump Pence or what should now be Trump Vance. Maybe he's putting that in his yard to keep the peace. Remember, he did not spend the money to buy a new sign. So he's just looking cool for the other knucklehead neighbors who really are spending money, like the guy across the street from him who's got like a bed sheet as like a flag hanging between two trees. But that was the one group I was thinking of. I think there's another one. I know there's another one, but I think there's one that's more. I think there's one that's more for the women. I think there's some Republican, and this is the one lady. Where's her name? Where's her name? Where are you at? There's the group. I mean, why would you not put the lady's name in your article? It's kind of disrespectful. Well, I know this lady's been one. She was, I think, also one of the subjects of one of the episodes of The Whistleblowers, Stephanie Grisham. Some even left, according to this article. I'll put it in the show notes, of course, available, as always, at Yergs.com. Is that wrong? There we go. Show notes always available, yerks.com. And this is, like I said, this article is a month old. John McCain's daughter, John McCain's son. I mean, these are, you've never seen this before. There was a letter written, and maybe that's the Republicans for Harris or against Trump, whatever I said it was called. In recent weeks, other senior Republican figures have also backed Harris. On October 27th, more than 200 staffers from previous Republican presidential candidates backed Harris, saying that a second Trump term is untenable. The letter was signed by 238 people who worked for George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, John McCain, and Mitt Romney. The last two, of course, being nominees, not actual presidents, but still senators, both of them. They wrote, "Of course, we have plenty of honest and ideological disagreements with Vice President Harris and Governor Walz. That's to be expected. The alternative, however, is simply untenable." They also urged moderate Republicans and conservative independents to follow their lead and back Harris. The signatories ranged from interns to high-level officials. The latter included Gene Becker, George H.W. Bush's longtime chief of staff, Joe Donahue, former legislative director for John McCain, and Jennifer Lux, who was press secretary for John McCain's 2008 presidential campaign. Former Representative Adam Kinzinger of Illinois, a longtime vocal Republican critic of Trump, is also among the prominent names on the list of Republicans backing Harris. Former Trump White House officials Stephanie Grisham and Olivia Troy have also joined the GOP grassroots program. Grisham served, this is the one that's talked about in the whistleblowers. Grisham served multiple roles in the Trump administration, mostly in communications, the most recent being chief of staff. This is where she resigned. Yep. The most recent being chief of staff for First Lady Melania Trump. She resigned in the hours after the January 6th, 2021 Capitol riot. Troy served as the Homeland Security and Counterterrorism. I think he might have been on that too, now that I think of it. Troy served as the Homeland Security and Counterterrorism advisor to then Vice President Mike Pence and on the White House Coronavirus Task Force before resigning in August 2020 and endorsing Biden's 2020 presidential campaign. On August 13th, Troy hosted a Republicans for Harris online rally. Wow. That was attended virtually by 73,000 people, according to the organizers. The group's website says over 100,000 people have joined this campaign within the campaign. Millions of Republicans will cast a ballot for Kamala Harris in November. It is okay to be a Republican and vote for Kamala Harris. I've been saying that. God damn it, listen to me. One of my most replayed TikTok is when I said, you can be a Republican. You can be a conservative and not be an asshole. I've been saying that. There it is. All right. I think that's a good place to stop. It's 12:28. Gave you an extra 28 minutes today of rambling, but I think some pretty intelligent. I mean, look at this. Wow. Former Republican governors, Jim Edgar of Illinois, Bill Weld of Massachusetts, Christine Todd Whitman, who's not liberal. I remember her, of New Jersey. To these people, it's obvious it's not that hard. All right, gang. There we go. You know what I didn't do? Let's do this quick because it's kind of, oh. Yeah, that's the one. And there you go. That right there, that article right there, which will also be, of course, in show notes, says it all with today's well, now it's afternoon, but morning motivation. I guess, do I got to move that to the beginning to make sure it stays in the morning? I don't think that's that big of a deal, but Steve Jobs is today's motivation. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't make much sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. There are those 200 plus smart people who are telling you what to do. Mark Milley, the former Joint Chiefs of Staff, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, other members of the Joint Chiefs. That's the one that I alluded to, or I actually talked about in the first hour. Remember when I said that there are certain people who are not allowed, are not supposed to step up and step out like that? The military does not do that. The military is apolitical. And we saw it happen. The Supreme Court is supposed to be apolitical. Both of those entities at the State of the Union address are to remain silent. They don't clap. They don't shake the president's hand. Everybody from the Supreme Court kissed his ass. That's not okay. Yeah, that's not okay. But we've got people like Mark Milley who have said, you know what, I've got to step up here. I've got to say something. John Kelly, who was a 4-star Marine general, turned Secretary of Homeland Security, turned Chief of Staff, until he had his fill and said, peace out. These aren't stupid people. These aren't people who are there just for the power. These are people who served. These are people who know what they're talking about. It doesn't make sense to put them in place and then just say, well, just go follow Trump because that's what we're supposed to do. Not in cases like that. Yet he still has the following that he does. Which, again, I don't think he does. But that he still has this level of rejects that just can't figure it out. All right, gang, we're back tomorrow, 11 a.m. for another 1-hour show that'll probably go into longer than that because it just seems to be the pattern right now. I wish that I was longer on the terrestrial stations, and we're working towards it. I think Wednesday might actually be an opening. We'll see if we can get that in the next couple of months, the way we did Monday and other days that we now filled up. 5 days a week with 99.1. That's awesome. Got to try to do the same thing down here in Tampa too. All right, everybody. That's it for today. Massive Media Network. You've been up the middle. We'll see you again tomorrow.